Welcome to another great week here at Beyond the Score podcast. Josh, how's everything going up north by you?
Everything's great over here, man. How's everything down there?
Can't complain. Weather's starting to change, things are starting to cool down slightly. And so we're just trying to get by down here in sunny Florida, even though it's not so sunny today.
Yeah, we're in that week you know from your time here that it gets like below 70 and then you shoot back up to 85 for a week so everybody can get sick and then it gets back down again.
Yep, that's typically how it works. Mother Nature works in fantastic ways. But
Yeah, I
on
call that.
another brighter note, we have sports. That's what we do over here. We don't talk about Mother Nature. We don't talk about other nonsense things. Although Mother Nature is not nonsense, I do want to say this. But we do prioritize our sports. Our first thing we want to discuss this week is the NHL cover for hockey. Josh, what do we got going with this cover? I mean, it's reported that we got the Hughes brothers going to be on here.
Well, I mean, yeah, the EA Sports account leaked it themselves. I mean, you could see I'm excited about it. I picked my Jack Hughes shirt. I think that him along with his brother Quinn and Luke, even though it looks like they're spotlighting Quinn, which makes sense because both Luke and Jack are on the Devils, for those who don't know. I mean, when you see this, there's no way that somebody else made this. What do you think, Harry? You think that this was just a mistake, or you think that there's a chance it's somebody else?
Well, if it was a mistake, you would think that EA would come out with a statement saying that this was not us, this was a leak, it's not correct, all that type of thing. So if they've let it go as long as they've had already, we can assume that this is probably going to be the cover, which is really cool. I mean, having the trios on there, it's quite fun to see. I mean, we love hockey enough to appreciate when we have single talent, but when we have three brothers who are playing in the league together, two of which are teammates,
It's
it's
so
really
sick.
cool to see. And I think the reason Quinn's in the middle is because he's the oldest. So maybe it's a sign of
It's true too.
respect. He's the eldest of the three. They're not old at all. Quinn's what, 25 years old, right? Or
Eh,
24.
Yeah,
Luke is
24. Yeah,
20, and then Jack is 23, something like that. I mean, they're all so young, but
you're on the
Quinn is the
money.
oldest. Yeah. So I mean, this is gonna be great. I mean, these trios are so much fun to watch. Josh, you're the Devils fan, so why don't you enlighten us and the whole world about what it's like watching at least two out of the three playing on a nightly basis.
Yeah, I think it's really cool. First, I'll touch on Quinn a little bit just because I'm sure you got some cool things about him, but you knew I would love my Devils. I was pulling up because shout out to Joey for this was my birthday shirt. It's a Jack. I knew you would like this. It's Jack on a Jack card.
Oh
Um,
shoot, that is pretty cool.
but so Quinn is the captain of the Vancouver Canucks. He's an absolute stud, and he's up there for the for the for the award every year. And fun fact that Coach Bruce Boudreau, when he was there, said that they should change him to a center, and you could guess why Quinn is on the team and Bruce is not. Um, anyway, onto Jack. Because clearly the organization knew what they were doing with him. I mean, Jack's a stud. Everyone knows it. He's in this area. Obviously, I'm a New Yorker, but I'm a Devils fan, and you're not going to hear much love, but that's not because of anything he's done in terms of saying he's not good. It's just people. It's a rivalry around here. But Jack almost had 100 points in 22-23. I feel like he's due to eclipse that next year. He was ready to do that last year, but he got hurt. That's been his big issue. If he could give us 80 games, we could see some crazy things. Someone maybe run for the Calder with not the Calder's rookie of the year, but to run for the MVP with McDavid, with Matthews, with those guys, and especially the team retooling around them. I mean, they when they drafted Luke, it was not just because he was his brother. He was a top prospect out of Michigan. He's very he's still a little work in progress, but he's a very impressive young player to be able to do the things he does offensively as a defenseman. And he's always working, always grinding. You could see that he doesn't take for granted the opportunity to be on the ice every single time. And I think that it's really cool to bring the brothers together and have them. Um, I'm sure throughout the game you'll see some cool things of that they got them all to do together. Maybe even some video clips of them like competing in ways you might never see when they're actually on the ice with each other. Because when Vancouver and the Devils play, it's a pretty fun game to watch. The announcers do not stop talking about it, which it probably annoys some people, but I think it's pretty cool because we have a long season. We have a lot of topics, and this one it's kind of cool to see Jack's, Luke's, and Quinn's parents all all rocking to support them all. And I think that it's not none of them are not someone with elite upside. I think that it's really cool to have three prospects from a family that are all studs or stud potential. But I think that you look at them and you see, I mean, their dad was a scout and he clearly brought his skills to his home, and now they're all it's just so exciting. I'm so excited for this year. What do you think of it? I know you'll probably look at it from a little bit less of a fan standpoint, but I do think that they're very impressive players.
Well, they're three brothers. They were all drafted in the top seven picks. You had Jack first, Luke went fourth, and Quinn went seventh. So they're all
Mhm.
obviously have a ton of potential. Jack is, going to be competing for the Hart Trophy many times throughout his career. We could already tell that just seeing from the way he plays and the way that the organization surrounds him. And I mean, it's an incredible story. You love seeing these three brothers who are in the same age, roughly 4 years apart, all being able to play together throughout the primes of their careers. And
Yeah.
it's a beautiful thing, right? We don't see that in every single sport. We barely see, just brothers in itself. Even in basketball, when we saw Marc Gasol and Pau Gasol going at it, that was a fun rivalry in itself. But this one, it's three brothers, two of them play on the same team, and they're all top seven overall picks. So we all know that the potential is there. One of them is a defenseman, the other one's a striker, the other one is a center. It's an incredible thing that I'm sorry, I called him a striker, a forward, however you want to call it. But they all imagine in a world where they could all actually be on the same team playing different positions, and I wonder how incredible the chemistry would be on that team. They probably played from such a young age that it would translate almost seamlessly onto the ice in the NHL as well.
Yeah, it'd be so sick. But also one thing that Luke and Quinn are both number 43 and Jack's number 86. So you know that I don't know the meaning behind the number where obviously 86 is double of 43. So I don't know the meaning behind it, but it seems like a family number. Not a very commonly used number, I feel like, whether it's 43 or 86. So it's a cool thing that they get to share that too. Luke and Quinn as the defenseman for they get to share their number going into like even though they're on different teams, they're still together.
Well, I wonder who would get 43. I'm guessing older Quinn would get 43 if they ever did play together. What do you think?
That's a good question. I mean, that's a cool thing to try and pick out some Devils fans in our followers to see what people think. But I mean, you gotta think that Quinn would give it up. I mean, Luke's not a star like that yet, but if they were on the same level in the same stratosphere and people have a lot of Luke jerseys, maybe Quinn would be number seven to just put them together, or maybe he'll split the difference of his brothers and be no, you can't be a point five. Never mind.
Right. Yeah. Well, you can't be a point five. I guess it would really matter if, let's say, hypothetically, Quinn was to make his way to the Devils, or vice versa, or they played for a different team. In any scenario, I guess that could really
Yeah.
determine who's going to get what number. But I have a fun fact actually about these three brothers. Luke and Quinn, the two oldest. I'm sorry, Jack and Quinn, the two older brothers. They're from Orlando, Florida, while Mr. Luke is from Manchester, New Hampshire. Can you believe that? So I wonder if they just picked up and said, let's move up north. Maybe for the hockey, the youth down there, up there is better, and they decided to leave Orlando and go right up to New Hampshire. But it's funny to see that they were in Orlando and they went to Manchester, out of all places.
Yeah, I mean, we could look up and see where their dad was working at that point, see if that was something that made a difference. But that's something
Or
that's really
mom,
cool, and
or mom, or mom.
that's true. I just knew he was a scout, so he would be more likely to have to relocate. But
Sorry, I didn't mean
regardless,
to put you on the spot there. I knew that you had that rebuttal down your pocket, so we had this planned out. Don't worry.
I, I got two daughters. I don't mind. I don't mind to defend the ladies. But I think that they probably saw at that point that Quinn was probably already skating like a stud. They're like, we got to move north to be accessible to the Canada leagues and all
Right.
whatever is to come with the cold weather and the ice. So you got to think it has something to do with that. But that's a fun thing to think why that happened. Just like I don't know. I don't know what I was
Well,
saying.
I have something to ask you, right? So since 1917, you've had 47 brothers play in the NHL. Not many
47
trios.
sets or
No, no,
like the
no.
brothers
Just
themselves.
brothers, not sets.
Okay.
Not many sets. I think it's a handful of sets. But there's one other trio set that could be considerable in having some dynasty over the trio of brothers. I want to ask you, Josh, are the Hughes brothers better or are the Stahl brothers the best trio? Or give us your thoughts. Are the Hughes brothers going to be able to catch up to the Stahl brothers?
I think it's too soon to tell because, like you said, Quinn's 24. He's the oldest one. I think that they're all players who coming into the league, I feel like have more upside. I mean, you look at them, the what is it? Jordan, Eric, and Mark. Is that what it is?
That is correct. 3 for 3. Good job. You won a prize.
But the point of the matter being that they were all great players and they've had great careers. I thought Eric might still be playing, but regardless, I think that that's a good like barometer where like the floor could be because I think that they're more new age, whereas I feel like the Stalls fit right when they were playing a little more physical, little more bruising. But I think that the Hughes brothers have potential to be the best trio. I mean, you don't really see trios of brothers in sports, so they could be among there with the best trios of brothers in sports now. I mean, you could look at you could say in we could look at 20 years when Acuna's youngest brother is 38. We could have that conversation, see if Luis Angel and Ronald are all better ascending. I mean, Ronald's definitely got the lead of the accolades of all six of them, but what do you think? You think those Acuna brothers could catch them? I kind of spun it back to you.
I mean, it's a completely different ball game, right? I mean, it is, but we have to still see the Acuna brothers get into the majors and show what they're really capable of. Their high prospects in their own organizations, but still, time will tell. Just because you're a high prospect, especially in baseball, really means nothing until you could translate into the field. But Hughes brothers, they have a high ceiling. I think expectations are there at this point, especially with how they've played so far in their young careers. So that I guess mark would be the Stahl trio, and you would
Yeah,
hope that they could, pass them maybe with their accolades, whatever it is. But it's a great comparison for them to be able to. I'm not going to sit there and say they look at that necessarily and say that's where we're striving to be, but a version of that where everyone could love and say, wow, look at these three brothers who played in their primes together, and two of them played together, and look how amazing their accolades are, and historically speaking, and all this stuff. So we shall see. But even going back to quickly, I just want to recap because NHL
yeah,
is going to be
totally.
coming out, and I know that that's a game that you absolutely love to play. I'm not so
I
much
do.
in love with it, but I play it here and there. What are you excited to see in this new version of NHL coming out, and whenever that is going to be coming out?
Knowing EA, they're very likely aren't too many differences that are going to come out, but it's just cool to be able to move on to the next year. Have all the now that I've been following way more closely, have all of the young guys get a year better, and it's honestly having the Hughes brothers highlighted is something really cool for me. To kind of not that I was considering not getting it, but kind of pushing me towards being excited about it. So I think that that's something that's really cool, and I think that getting on the trios with Dev and Joey being the Kingston Rough Riders. We got like 4 followers on TikTok for our highlights, but we have a lot of fun with it. I'm just excited to play trios with them again.
Well, hopefully I'll get in on some of those games. You guys can teach me some stuff on NHL so I can compete because I know Joey's very good, and I'm certain you are as well, and probably Devin too. But me over
Yeah.
there, when I'm hitting those sticks on the Xbox controller, I start flailing a little bit. I'm like, what is going on? My guys are going left and right. I don't mean to do this. I don't mean to do that. It's a very difficult game to play. So if anyone who could actually, I guess, quote unquote, master it, good for you. That's a very difficult game to be able to play consistently and consistently well. So good luck to that. I will
Yeah,
say hockey is starting October 4th. That's when we'll bring you guys a lot more hockey as well. Now that things are starting to settle in, we're in the midst of this off season. We're going to bring you guys all the details regarding any new stuff coming out for hockey. We want to bring
for
you guys
sure.
way more hockey too because it's, obviously every year we're seeing a bigger trend where it's growing amongst viewers. And so if that
Mhm.
means it's growing amongst viewers, that means we have to give you guys more content on this. So that's what we're going to bring you guys on a more frequent basis, hopefully speaking. And from there, we're going to
Absolutely.
transition on to something else that's getting right into the season. That's college football, right? We discussed a little bit recently about college football, the ESPN and CBS rankings that have come out, but this weekend we'll have our first game. FSU versus Georgia Tech is going to be going on 12 o'clock this Saturday, and that's going to be a fun game to open up the season,
Mhm.
get college football back in action, getting all the fans pumped that football in general is just coming back. And that's when we know when football is back, people start settling down. They get ready for their Saturdays and Sundays. They block off their calendars. Everyone says they're busy when in reality they're just sitting home eating some wings and drinking some soda and watching some football. Aren't we excited to see college football? What do we got going on for this weekend and in the future of college?
Yeah, I mean, shout out to Alex Way for the comment because this is a fan mail for us because we got a comment on that on our post. So we're gonna go right into who our top 12s would be, and then next week we'll touch on who we think is gonna play each other, what the scores will be, and then what our finals is and our winners. But I think it's gonna be a really fun year. I think that the conference realignment is something that I'm very curious to see how some of these bigger programs make their transition. For example, like Oklahoma to the SEC, and I think also the chance for it's funny Cincinnati left the AAC, but now the AAC has a guaranteed spot. Well, if they're among the five highest ranked conference champions. So I think that's something that's really cool. I think that they that's how they'll forever leave their mark on their old conference. And then I think it's going to be really fun to watch some new teams make some noise and potentially try and get at Georgia.
Also, let's not forget about the ACC. And that's where Florida State is going to be representing this weekend for the first game of the season, 10th ranked on ESPN's rankings. But, with the new rules, they have to get into the top five as well. At least not FSU, but an ACC team. And, we'll get
Mhm.
into our lists and we'll show you guys who we think is going to be in the top five at least. And
Absolutely.
so, you want to start off with your list? Or, you know what? Actually, before we get into that, let's discuss a little bit more about this game. It's for the first game, everyone's going to have their eyes on it. They're all ready. Even if you're not a fan of either team, you want to watch the game. And so let's bring you guys some realistic live betting options that are available.
We love
Uh,
it.
this is just live. This is not based on what originally came out, but currently, as of today, Georgia. I'm sorry, FSU is 13-point favorites, and that'll give you a F440 money line as well as if you wanted to take Georgia on the other side, they're plus 335. Josh, unless you have something different on your end, and the over under is 55 and a half. Who do you think is going to win this game?
Yeah, I have the same over under. I have a spread at 10.5. I mean, we could be looking at different books. I don't really know. I had it up on ESPN's page, and it was the first thing on the NCAA page, obviously because it's the first game. Shout out to David Shanahan, the punter who's be playing at home, in Dublin in Ireland. That's something that's really cool. And shout out to when you go back to hockey for one more thing that the Devils and Sabres are playing in Prague. So I think these sports are doing a really good job showing themselves the world. And that October 4th date that you gave will have Devils and Sabres. But I think there's no way Florida State loses this game. I think that when you look at Georgia Tech, they're looking to punch you in the mouth. Florida State, they're very motivated, they're very confident, and they know that they belong among the top teams. And they felt like they could have won a championship last year. So what better way to do it than to go overseas and play really well, really sound, really fundamental. So for me, I'm looking at an under. I'm looking at under 55 and a half. I'm looking at Florida State to win. I don't know if minus 450 or whatever you were talking about, 440 gives you any value on that under. But I like to tease it also where you take some points off of both. Like you could take 7 points off of the spread, make it minus 3.5, and then add 7 or 6 points. It's 6 or 7, but I have to look. I have to look into it anymore. The teasers haven't been a thing that I've seen in a little while, but it's still something that's good to get that over 60. But I think that under is a pretty good play because it's two power conference teams. It's two teams that are looking to make a statement in the early game. Georgia Tech is going to make their statement by keeping Florida State low in score, even if they lose the game. Florida State's going to look to pitch a shutout, in my opinion. What do you think? You think that they're looking to blow them out, or you think they're looking to show that they're stout? Oh, bars.
Well, it's the first game, so I think you could see a little rust falling off some of these players. But FSU is the more dominant team. I'm glad that you said that the line for ESPN now is 10.5, and you are also taking the under as well. Because for me, my prediction is FSU winning this game 27-20, where I think it's going to be a close enough game throughout the most game. Georgia's going to be able to. Well, Georgia Tech is going to be able to at least recoup defensively a bit, where they're going to be able to hold things down and make sure that the game doesn't go, into another realm scoring wise at least.
For
So I
sure.
mean, I think 27-20 is where I believe the game is going to be at. Probably not going to be exact because we're never almost exactly right on these score predictions, but we try to get as close as possible, and I think this is going to get as close as possible. What do you think the score is going to be like?
There's also a bunch of different variations that can go on throughout a game that make, even if you're off by 1 point. I mean, I'm not saying to put the on either of our scores to put the plus 3,000 or whatever it'll be, but I mean it could be a cool $1, $2 bet. I like to do that when I go to the Yankee games sometimes. But I think it'll be a 31-17. I think that they will cover that spread. I'm not looking to bet on the spread in the first game though, but I think because even if you look at it 31-17, if the game's over and Georgia Tech gets that backdoor touchdown, it's 31-24. That's 55 points. We're still in the money with the under.
Well, I guess you have to look at it. Did it go from 10.5 to 13 or 13 to 10.5? Because if it went from 10.5 to 13, I don't feel as good. If it went from 13 to 10.5, I feel a little bit better about my prediction at least. But 31-17 is a reasonable score to see in this game happening as well.
Yeah.
Georgia Tech's offense is going to be a little lackluster in my opinion. So the scoring is probably going to be difficult. We're off by a field goal in terms of what their
Yeah.
offense is going to be able to put out there. And on the other side, it's two safeties, right? Or whatever
Yeah,
you
for
want
sure.
to, make it the math easy, so to speak. But it's going to be a great game. Everyone's going to be excited. It's going to be a lot of fun, a lot of, I guess you could say, emotions that football is back. These players are ready to go. This is the first game, right? And the players know it. They know that NFL's not started yet. This is going to be the first college game. It's going to be in Ireland. It's going to be a completely different environment. So this is going to be something that everyone's going to want to see and just get ready
Right.
for the remaining week of, week one of college football. And so, I also wanted to go back and talk about that quick thing you said about the hockey game being in Prague. If I was an athlete and I'm playing in Prague, oh my goodness. Let me tell you something. It's going to be a different show. It is going to
Oh
be a
yeah.
different environment. Going to Prague, can you imagine? That's going to be a lot of fun. You know what? We should
Yeah.
go to Prague. Why don't we take the
I'm
studio
with
with
it.
us? We'll take Ben, we'll take Podcast Junkies, we'll take a trip out to Prague. We'll do those games over there and we'll get the studio up and running. You think that's a good idea,
I think
Ben?
that's a phenomenal idea.
I
I think
They say the only I don't mean to cut you off, Ben, but the only thing is that you will not be able to hear a lick
No, no, no,
because
no,
the
no, no.
game
We're gonna
the
have our
games
own little
over there is
spot.
different.
We're gonna have our
Oh,
own
we're
little
gonna get
spot.
Oh,
We're
I
gonna
see you.
we're not gonna be in the ice, like on the ice or in the stadium. We're gonna have our own little area to do our thing, represent, and at the same time, when we're done recording, we'll go enjoy the rest of Prague and maybe catch some games and see what's
Yeah,
see what's
I'm with
out there. I think that's a
I'm
great
with it.
idea. I think I'm in. Seems like Ben's in. Josh, you in?
I'm in, and a fun fact for you is
Prague 2024. Here we come.
Andre Palat and Tatar are both from Czechoslovakia, so they're gonna have some people there rooting for them. I mean, I don't. That's what I thought it was called Czechia nowadays, but when I looked them up before, it said Czechoslovakia on the
Czechia.
ESPN. That's what I thought they called their country now.
It's right now. It's Czech Republic.
I thought they go by Czechia, but whatever it is, the point of it is that they whether it's
Are you
Czechia or
doubting my Are you
Czechoslovakia
doubting
or
my
this.
geography?
Well, to be fair, you're doubting mine, so
This is true. This I can't deny the
you
truth.
got you there.
I am doubting, but I am doubting it. That's the thing too. I am doubting it a little bit. I've never heard of Czechia. I've heard of Chechnya, but I don't think that's the same place.
all right. Anyway, moving on. I think that I
Geography
think that
lesson is done for the week.
I think that they'll have their whole families with the team the whole time that they're there. I mean, I know the Devils really like to have the families, especially the dads involved, like the dads of the players. So I think they'll be really proud to show their homeland off to the what's it called to their teammates. And I think also that Tatar might have been a little extra motivated to come back to us because of these games over here. I mean, he had the best plus minus in the league in 22-23 to make that move back, but I don't want to drift too far from college football.
Yeah, we were getting excited about going to potentially Prague. So let's get back
I'm with
into
it though.
yeah.
I'm with it though.
Who wouldn't be right at this point? Let's just get on a flight and get out of here, right?
Let's
But
do it.
we gotta finish up our football. We still have to go over our list. Josh, you want to start off with your seating, or at least from 12 to 1? Why don't we do that? We'll go from 12 to 1.
Yeah, so before I start, I wanted to make sure that I put out the little disclaimer that I thought that in the top five conference teams had to be the top five ranks, and that's the way I use a simulator to project a lot of games throughout the year, and then it kind of did an algorithm to figure out where everyone will be ranked from it based on how I think the season's going to go. So I do think that my AAC champion would be the 12th best team on this list, but I have them at number 5 because I think that that's the way it has to be. I mean, we could totally check on that. I'm sure we'll all, this will be a learning curve for everyone, and it's going to be something that's going to be amazing. But number 12, I have Missouri, LSU at 11, Penn State at 10, Ole Miss at 9, Ohio State at 8, Texas at 7, Notre Dame at 6, Memphis at 5 as that AAC champion, Utah at 4, Florida State at 3, Oregon at 2, and Georgia at 1. What about you, Harry?
You had Ohio State at 8?
I'm going strictly off the algorithm. I said how the season's gonna go. I think that these will be the 12 teams ranked. So
I just
yeah, I
want
have
to. I
them at
just
8
want to say.
because
I just want to say that just shows how unbiased Josh is, because there's probably no one bigger that I know that's as big of an Ohio State fan as he is. And he said, "I don't give a crap about that. If my algorithm says it's gonna be 8, it's gonna be 8." And that's what he did.
yeah, yeah. I mean, the two teams that I liked Ohio State a lot when I was younger, and then the team that I've come on to like over the last few years is Oregon. So I don't even know, that might be a bad look for me to admit that, but the only games I have Ohio State losing are the two games to Oregon. I think that Dylan Gabriel is such a stud at quarterback. I think that that'll be a real problem for Ohio State, but I don't think that either game they get blown out. I think that it's a respectable game, and I want to hear your 12. I don't want to use up all the time.
Well, my list might be a little botched because I had to also review the new rules and make sure that I was making everything work as possible. But I think I might have botched something. Josh, you'll be able to tell me a little bit more about it, since the technical aspect of things you seem like to be a whiz at. But let me start off my 12. I go from 12, I go Miami, 11, Michigan, 10, Clemson. At 9, I'm going Ole Miss, 8, Penn State, number 7, Alabama, 6, Notre Dame, 5 is going to be FSU, 4, Oregon, 3, Texas, number dos, Ohio State, and numero uno, Georgia.
I don't think you messed anything up. I mean, I don't think there's a fifth conference champion in there, but I think that honestly, you look at the teams that aren't mutually ranked between us. I think like Alabama would be my 13, for example. And then I'm sure you would take some of the teams that I have and put them in your top 25 too. So it's so much fun, and so many different things can happen in a college football season. And it'll be really cool to see some teams that aren't on this list make it. All you underdogs, prove me wrong.
We love underdog stories, so we are
Yeah.
going to follow most of these underdogs and give a lot of light to that, because the underdog story is the one that most people don't like to talk about until they're no longer really underdogs, let's just say, to the point where now they're in the limelight, and you hear about, oh, they were underdogs, but we don't necessarily hear about when they are currently underdogs, unless they're a big market team and they were good in the past and now they're getting back into things. But we're going to bring you all the underdogs. We love underdog stories, so hopefully we get a lot of those and we can kind of wrap up with that. But I mean, these are strong lists. I think it'll be fun to see and compare at the end when the season is getting to the playoffs, see where these teams are going to end up landing, and go from there. Because what we plan on doing at that point is give you guys a legitimate seeding and kind of bring you guys all the way to the championship game. That's going to be in Mercedes-Benz, right? And is that where is that, Louisiana?
We're actually, I think we're Caesars Superdome now, but it's at Mercedes Benz in Atlanta. Ben, if you want to pull up the picture.
Atlanta. I don't know why I messed that up. I think Saints
The
anytime I think of
Saints.
Mercedes-Benz.
I mean, that was their name for the longest time, so I'm
Right.
not mad about it. But I think that that's just a cool picture to just show that, I don't know. I really like their logo in every way, everything they do to promote these college athletes that are finally getting their NIL, getting their keep. I mean, I hope that like the little schools don't lose their luster from it, because I hope that some people look at it as, I don't want to be I don't want to be on the big team. I want to be the guy on a smaller team to show the NFL that I am him. And then even if you play 1 year at a big school just to show you could do it against the established defense, fine. Like I feel like that's something that you look at as a whole, and you want the whole sport to flourish. You don't want the rumored stuff of the top conferences breaking off. Those little schools need the big schools, and you don't want to see anything anything like that happen.
So you're big on these players transferring back and forth collegiately. Well, not back and forth,
Um,
just going one direction, I guess.
I'd like to see players that kind of I'd like to see them earn their transfers. I don't want to see all these guys that go and then don't earn a spot, get a spot somewhere else over someone who was recruited or someone who came from a smaller school. But then again, it's fair to say that they deserve their chance just as much as the other guys. But I think that once you're in college, it's a different ball game. But at the same time, you look at some of these states that the high school football is probably better than some of the college football
Ooh.
in like D2 or D3. Now, I wouldn't say low D1 it's better than, but the intensity of the games and how much they matter, and I think that a lot of the best athletes come from there too.
You think
So
you think the
overall,
Plainview Hawks could beat LIU Post?
I think the Plainview Hawks would lose 200 and let me think of a divisible by 7, 210-0.
Oh, wow. So that's not one of those high school to D2 comparisons that you were talking about. I guess you're talking more
No,
about
absolutely not.
Texas
Texas,
and things like that. I got you. All right. Well,
Florida, yeah.
that's fair enough. We're gonna bring you guys a lot of college as they keep coming up, and so we're excited. Football is back, baby. We can't wait to bring you guys all the good stuff regarding not only college but the NFL as well as they come. We're gonna bring it right to you guys. Let's shift on to a new rule that was implemented in baseball. Well, I wouldn't say it's been implemented just yet, but it seems like it's basically going to be implemented for the 2025 season. There's going to be a new pitching rule that's going to make starters have to go at least 6 innings. And this is quite a hot take amongst a lot of people. Josh, what do you think about this new potential rule that's going to take into effect in 2025?
Yeah, so they're looking to make pitchers go 6
That's
innings
crazy.
as starters. I honestly don't know too much about the penalty if they don't, but I know that if you give up 4 runs, you could come out. If you throw 100 pitches, you could come out. If you get injured, you could come out. But before I get into that, Ben, if you don't mind playing that video, there's something from May, a rule that I really liked that I thought that they should do, to have it be an incentive to have a starting pitcher go longer, but have a team have a choice, just like the shift, they change their strategy, just like all these other things, they could change their strategy.
I didn't think there was a way to incentivize something like this, but let's see what this guy said.
That's crazy enough to work.
Talk about incentives.
Yeah.
The double hook.
Right.
I think I invented the double hook. I didn't, but I did name the double hook.
Good job.
The way the double hook worked originally was when your starting pitcher leaves the game, your DH has to leave the game. You want incentive to leave your starting pitcher in?
Right.
That does it. But there are a lot of issues with that. And so the version of it that's now being used in the Atlantic League is if your starter goes 5 or more, you get to keep your DH for the rest of the game.
Okay.
And that makes a lot of sense.
Ronnie, what about that? Wait, that seems reasonable to me. What about that?
It does, and I think it incentivizes not only the good clubs, but clubs that are trying to win on the margins of trying to keep that.
Yeah, we
hitter
can't
in
let them
core.
win. You guys are unbelievable. Don't let people bullpen and come up with a better way. We're going to stop that. Hey, we're going to shift around on the field. Stop that immediately.
I mean, everyone wants their offense in the game. To try to take the offense away would really incentivize the starting pitcher.
That's crazy.
Jeez.
What do you think about that?
Taking the DH out? So what? The pitcher's going to hit at that point?
Well, if you don't,
Or
if
you're going
your
to keep
starter-
subbing out your pitcher or your reliever for a substitute and go from there every single time?
that's the strategy choice. But if your pitcher goes 5 innings, you get to keep your starter in.
Well, so you're saying, well, they're saying that if you pulled your pitcher prior to the 5th inning or the 6th inning, that you would lose your DH?
Yes, at that moment.
Well, see, I would rather just keep it the way that they plan on doing it. You have to go 5 or 6. Well, they're asking for 6 innings. You have to, unless 4 earned runs or 100 plus pitches or an injury. But side note on that injury, they have to go directly onto the IL after that. It's not like, oh, you can come out for a cramp and then, be day to day and see how things are going. You're going on the IL as a pitcher at that point. So you're missing at least 1-2 starts at that point. And so that could affect a lot of things. I think the incentive really here would be considering that these teams would be preserving their bullpens, right?
Yeah.
In this fashion, because, there's a lot of teams that it will help, but there's a lot of teams that it will also hurt. And so, like, you can have an example where, like, the Tampa Bay Rays, this would hurt because Kevin Cash is a manager wizard, and he knows how to manipulate his lineups and his bullpens and his pitchers, and he's
Yeah.
a master when it comes to battling against other managers. He uses the openers, and this would essentially make those go extinct at that point. And then you have to now figure out a new way to be able to maneuver through it. A team like the Yankees, where their starters don't typically, at least in 2024, go 6 innings. Well, now they have to go 6 innings. Realistically, the negative you would think is, all right, well, they're putting more strain on their arm. Regardless of if they go or not, they're putting that strain on their arm anyways. But at least now their bullpen, if let's say your starter goes 3 earned runs or has 90 pitches, they're going into it, at least into the 6th inning trying, and at least your bullpen's not getting wiped out. Like, this week we already saw a game where the Yankees used up every single reliever in their bullpen. That game went into the 12th inning, but what happens if Michael Tonkin in that scenario is done, right? You're having one of your hitters pitch? Jose Trevino's going to go pitch? That's crazy.
Well, I mean, they have that now because teams have been doing bullpen games for a little while now, where they have opener and then they just have people go in their windows where they have certain people that they face and then they move on to the next guy. But the reason why I think it should be considered to be 5 innings is because, I mean, since 2020, the average start is 5 innings, 83 pitches, 1 complete game per team for the season, and since 2019, that's down 10 pitches per start. The innings pitched is down almost a full inning to 0.7 from 5.7. The walks are up 0.2 per game, and per 9 innings, and the strikeouts are up almost a full strikeout per 9 innings. I think that it's something that if you're really looking to maximize your product and get the best product out there, I think whether you do the double hook or not, I think 5 innings is the number with the way the game is, with the way everybody's trained. I mean, you can argue that 6 innings is good because that's 2/3 of the game, and then the bullpen is only 3 innings and then extras. But at the same time, I'm not looking to see some guys go into the 6th inning. I mean, if you get 100 pitches, but then you could just, I don't know, it could go up, and then I don't know. It's a interesting thing for me, and also I think that the way complete games have gone since, I mean, in the 50s, they were 52 complete games per team per season. And now in the 2020s, it is 1 complete game per team per season. So I think that they need to try and find out what these guys were doing, or just
I can tell you what it is
maybe-
right now. It's velocity. It's throwing so
Well,
hard.
yeah.
It's because they emphasize the fact that in 2024, pitchers need to throw 100 miles an hour, or at least close to it, as close as possible, for them to have an actual shot. And what happens when the velocity goes up? Everything goes up. Literally, everything goes up. The strikeouts go up. The walks go up. The walks go up because you're all over the place. When the command goes out the window, it makes things a lot more difficult. So maybe this would prioritize teams to say, well, now we have to go 5 or 6 innings, whatever they end up doing it. I think it should be 6, only because 5 gets you, 5 innings qualifies you for the win. 6 qualifies you for a quality start as long as you have under 4 earned runs. 3 and under gets you the quality start. So I think that's a nice number. I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to the idea of doing 5 if the pitch count would have to also reflect that. I don't think it makes sense to give them that 100 number at that point, or the 4 earned runs number at that point. It should be like 80.
Well, if you have 100 pitches, in 4 innings, regardless what the rule is, you should come out.
I mean, that's, any team would do that regardless anyways, but that's the reason why, with the velocity being so high now and that prioritizing it, 52 shutouts or complete games back in the day versus 1 in this year in 2024, it's not that much of a surprise when we see what these teams are prioritizing. It's arm strength. They want speed over a strike, really, at this point. It seems like, I mean, we see these guys throwing 95 to 100 miles an hour that you feel like if that same player was just 10 years out and they were coming into the league, let's say in 2014, they'd be throwing like 90 to 92, 93 miles an hour. It's because they're emphasizing throwing hard. Realistically, if you had the same tools that you had today 10 years ago, those pitchers would be throwing hard too. It's just,
let me ask you a question.
Is it the right way though? Yeah. What's the question?
So do you think this all comes down to money, where the owners have just the money's gotten so big that these owners pull guys because they want to manage their workload, even if the inning number doesn't reflect it, like because let's say let's say a guy is pitching to the tune of 3 runs and he has 97 pitches going into the sixth inning, like yeah, you'd be able to pull him in the sixth, but you look at it where they might just cut them after 5 just to protect their investment. Do you think money has anything to do with why the average pitches per start has gone down 10 pitches in the last 4 years?
I think it's definitely part preservation because we've had more injuries today than we've ever had, even for the guys that are getting paid $30 million or the guys that are getting paid $3 million in the league. You will obviously want to secure your best players, but you also want to see your best players go 7, 8 innings. That's their, especially we're talking about specifically the pitchers, but that's really what, these high valued, high priced pitchers are supposed to be doing. If Garrett Cole is going 5 1/3 on average, he's not worth $36 million a year. It's just not how it works, right? If you have to use your bullpen for 10 to 12 outs, it's not really something that's going to work for a successful team, at least to win a championship, to win a World Series. Of course, you need a balance. You need a good rotation. You need a good start. You need a good bullpen, and you need good offense. You need good defense. No questions asked. But, if you want to conserve, all the incentives that they give you, if you hit 200 innings and all this stuff, that's all going to go away, right? Players are not going to, there's going to be no more incentivized deals where if you hit 200 innings because you're capped with all these things. But
And no one is going to pay relievers. No one's going to pay relievers anymore.
That's true too. Unless you're, one of the best closers in the league, you're not going to really be as much of a necessity at this point. Other than, unless a team that has a really bad rotation or a rotation that they don't trust, where they're like, at least let's have some really good relievers in there that if our guys are going 4 innings because they already have 100 pitches or they're blowing games, they already have 4 or 5 runs in the first 2-3 innings, then you'll have some good relievers in there, but it doesn't help relievers by any means. I wonder actually how they're responding to this whole innings dilemma, pitch count dilemma, because for them, this doesn't help them at all as a reliever, right? If you're Tommy Kahnle and you're going to be a free agent next season when you're having one of the best seasons of your career at this point, and you're like, well, I'm not even sure I'll get a pay raise at this point because of some rule like this, it's going to affect these guys, and it's going to be a very difficult thing to transition to. The truth is, though, starters should be going 6 innings. It stinks that a rule needs to be put in place for it because back in the day, I'm not, and I don't want to talk about postseason. I'm talking about specifically for the regular season because I think the postseason is a completely different ballgame. That's when your manager needs to be on point, making the right moves. We've seen 2015 Kansas City Royals have the worst rotation in baseball, win a World Series, and that's another story to be had. But when we're going down to this rule, it shouldn't have to be done. When you have guys that are getting paid this much money, and I would if I was the owner or the manager or the GM, I would sacrifice velocity to ensure that I have quality, because that's literally what it is. We all know how it is: quality over quantity all day, every day, right? Why throw 100 miles an hour if you can't throw it over the strike zone? If you're going all over the place, this doesn't help anybody. And so I think the real thing is fix how you build these players up from the start.
Yeah.
Get these guys to understand that, listen, you could have 98 in the back pocket if you want. Doesn't necessarily mean you need to throw 98, 99 every single time. Bring it down to 95, 96. It's still pretty fast. We got guys in the league that throw in the low 90s as long as they have a good off-speed pitch or a good second pitch that gets them by. They mix it up here and there. Boom. You could throw 92 miles an hour and be successful. Start a picture. We see that with who is in Anaheim.
Anderson?
Yeah, Tyler Anderson. He's a stud. He's got a sick changeup, dude. It's incredible. So if you could prioritize that and get back into kind of like the old school of baseball, you don't need this rule. So it's really just the fact that money is very important to these guys, and people like seeing the 100 miles an hour. That definitely brings you a lot of fans, and it's like, whoa, you see the flames coming out. But the truth is, when they're going down left and right with injuries, there's way too many more negatives than there are positives. What do you think?
Let me tell you how I would run a team if this rule was in place. I would have a 7-man pitching rotation. I'd have maybe my biggest guy go on if I have like a Friday home game, or like I would have them go every Friday, go once a week, and keep the money reasonable. I mean, I don't even know what's reasonable anymore. Everyone's making millions of dollars, but
Inflation,
I'd have a
baby, inflation.
I'd have a 7-man rotation because why do you need all of these relievers if they're only pitching a third of every game? And then you'll have extra innings maybe a handful of times, but there's no reason you shouldn't instead whether keep a swing man on the roster or just have a 7-man rotation. That's what I would do. I mean, of course you want the best guys pitching every time, but I think that also might keep them healthy. And then I don't really like the idea of it all of a sudden changing in the playoffs. Like I don't know with this runner on second that they do it in the regular season and then in the playoffs they don't. I mean, that makes sense in terms of keeping the game shorter during the season to not wear the guys out. But I think that in terms of the product, I don't think it should be a different game in the regular season and the playoffs. I think that if you have the 7-man rotation, if you have maybe a rise of two-way players that maybe they start on Monday and then they play the field the rest of the week, that's something that could be an option too. I think it's a really cool thing, but if it was 5 weeks, I don't think it would be that much different besides save the relievers, save the 5-man rotation, not completely change the dynamic. But you know what? If that's the natural course, I think that you'll see a rise in two-way starters. You'll see a decrease in reliever contracts and potentially in their money, and you'll see some guys that you're questioning if their stuff's good or if they're even belong in the league on the roster as a sixth or a seventh starter. And I think that that's something that it's a quality of product thing for me that I don't know if every team can put 7 competitive MLB pitchers, excuse me, on their roster for an entire season. And of course, I mean, you look at the White Sox and they're about at 100 losses. They don't have the 5, but when it comes to looking at the league on opening day, you want every team to feel like they can reach whatever their goal is.
It's something that they cannot change, at least in terms of regular season to postseason. That cannot happen. You got to keep the game consistent. 7-man rotation, it's quite interesting. I'm not against the idea of expanding the rotation. I'd probably like to start at least at 6 because most teams go at 5 right now. So, at least add one more because I don't know. There has to be a negative correlation with too much rest. If you have a groove, if you have the right pitch and you're feeling it, you want to go every 5 days. You don't want to wait an extra day. But the truth is, if this is going to be something that does happen, well, then you might have something that, where maybe it's something where you can bring up a pitcher every 6th day and use them, as a 6th option at least and go from there. The truth is, you still need relievers. In the playoffs, you definitely need a good bullpen. If you don't have a good bullpen, you will not win in the playoffs. That is the truth. It doesn't really matter, and we've seen this in and out and throughout the playoffs, and I can go back to the 2015 Kansas City Royals that won. They had a great bullpen. Their rotation did not carry them. It was their offense and their bullpen that got the job done, and that's what it was. So, it's going to be a lot of interesting things to see what rules actually do come. There's some other ones that are in the back burners, too, that we shall see. Rob Manfred doesn't make the best decisions when it comes to baseball, but if it's money bags in front of him, he's going to chase it. We shall see. I mean,
everyone always forgets the commissioner works for the owners. He's not his job. Of course, the owners want to please the fans, but his job is to do what the owners tell him. So people get on him, and frankly, I do too. But his job is not to answer to me. It's to answer to the guy signing his multi-million-dollar contract.
it's funny because isn't he part of the decision making if a new owner wants to come in?
Yeah,
And
exactly.
then
It's
and
all
then and then it's like it's a puppet show, really, honestly, in my opinion. Some of
when it
these
comes to
owners
that,
are
I agree.
some of these owners are way too corrupt in just the way they run their teams, but that's part of sports, I guess. And so, the baseball season is in the second half right now. We'll see what these rules, when they do come into fruition, they actually do hit the, official mark. We're gonna let you guys know that this is something that is official. But, this is baseball is something that you and we can go back and forth on all day, every day. It's our bread and butter almost, so to speak. So, on another note, when it comes to, baseball, we have some great things in terms of these teams that are currently all one game. All the best teams in baseball are all one game apart from each other from 1 through like 5. So, it's going to be a really fun finishing of the second half and then a postseason. So we're going to bring you guys a lot of new baseball, a lot of new topics that are going to be coming up. And not just baseball, every sport, hockey, football, cricket, rugby, whatever. Whatever you guys let us know. If you're like, I want to hear this more, let us know, please, because that's what we love it, right? We love it when we have the engagement from you guys, letting us know what you guys want us to discuss, what we should be discussing. And again, of course, if we have the craziest takes in the world, let us know. I know I'm crazy, and I like being told I'm crazy, so please tell me that I'm crazy.
You're crazy.
Josh, I hear that from you almost every day of my life, to be honest with you. So from you, it's not really much of a difference, but we love doing this.
You're crazy.
Oh, Ben, that's the first time you called me crazy, man.
It just means he's gotten to know you.
It's the truth, though. It's the truth, and that's what we do here. We're crazy people, but we love doing what we do. We love coming here every single week, bringing you guys our takes on sports. And thank you guys for giving us all the love and support you guys have so far. So we really are appreciative. Josh, do you want to thank our fans?
Absolutely. Thanks for coming back. We hope you enjoyed this episode. We really hope to see you commenting on our Instagram page. We're getting the TikTok page going too. We're on Spotify, Apple Podcast, YouTube. We're building them all up. We're just trying to make the best show for you. We have a lot of fun doing it, but we can't do it without the fan mail, without everything going on in sports, and without you.
We also can't do it without Yogi Berra. He's got some of the best yogiisms in the world, and I got to bring you one that I love absolutely. You should always go to other people's funerals. Otherwise, they won't come to yours. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Yogi Berra, thank you for always giving us some of the best quotes ever. Fans, you guys are the best. We really appreciate you. Ben, you're the best. We really appreciate you and the Podcast Junkie Studios. Thank you guys for tuning in on another episode of BTS, and we'll be back next week.